You have wisely chosen to listen to the shittiest movie podcast in the land. Welcome to Let's Talk Movies.
I guess.
Okay, let's do our countdown.
5,
4,
3,
1.
Nice. But you're not supposed to... Oh, okay. So you're supposed to count 2 and not count 1. But you're not supposed to count 1 as number 2.
Oh, got it.
Whatever. Okay. Welcome to Let's Talk Movies, I guess. That show that's back based on, I don't know, popular demand.
Unpopular demand.
No demand. The lack of demand. Anyway,
Inverse demand.
I'm Matt. I'm your usual host. I'm joined, as usually, if not always, by my co-host, John.
I am also a host.
Yeah, but you're like a co-host.
I'm like a primary co-host.
I think we're both co-hosts. Isn't that how that would work? Like the idea of there being two of anything?
I know we've talked about this before, but I don't think we've ever really gotten a resolution on this.
All right,
we've never agreed on what our roles are, which is fine.
I'm chief co-host and you're co-host.
I'm primary co-host.
I'm chief co-host.
In chief.
And you are primary co-host.
No, you're chief co-host. I'm co-host in chief.
Great. Okay, so this is Let's Talk Movies, I guess, where we talk about movies.
And our roles in the show.
I guess. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about some boxing movies. One pretty critically acclaimed, but pretty aged at this point.
And the other one's called Rocky.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. So that's going to be the meat and potatoes of this episode, I suppose. I wanted to offer something to people, though, at the beginning of this show, something they probably don't know, a reason to actually tune in and find something out about the world. And in case the rest of the show, I mean, you don't walk away with much because we're not like factual or anything. This is just our opinions. This isn't like another movie podcast.
Yeah, we're yes. We're actually the opposite of factual. If we think we're about to have accurate statements or facts, then we try to back off and add more conjecture.
So you can opinion check us in the comments section on the website and let us know.
We really look forward to your opinion checks.
Where our opinions were wrong and that sort of thing, and that's fine. But yeah, I wanted to leave you guys with something like a little piece of knowledge. If nothing else. So I was listening to the radio today in the car, which is like an old timey thing to do. But it's my brother's car, which is old timey, and doesn't have a CD player, doesn't have the kind of thing where you like plug in your phone or whatever. So I was listening to the radio, and a Chicago song came on the waves. And if you know Chicago at all, like what song do you think probably hit the airwaves today, John?
20.
It was from their album Chicago 2.
I don't know the exact numbers, but it was like 25 or 6-4.
Yes, 25 or 6-4, which a lot of people are like 25, okay, or 6, and then 2, 4. But the 2 is actually TO, which is one thing, which is why it's probably confusing to some people. So what would you theorize that song is about?
Wait, is it the one that goes like 25 or 6-4?
Yeah, I mean, but they sing it better, but yeah.
Like finds the number on the bathroom stall.
Else. No, that's Tommy Two-Tone.
Oh, I get those mixed up all the time.
Yeah, well, anyway.
Similar message?
No. Surprisingly, so like a lot of people don't know this, 25 or 6-4 is a reference to the like it being like either 3:34 or 3:35 in the morning, and it's 25 or 6-4. And all the lyrics to the song, if you look at them, are about how he can't think of anything to write. Like it's literally about having writer's block.
Wait, 6-4? I don't get that.
25 or 6, so like 25 or 26, to 4, like 4 a.m.
Oh, I got it.
Right. It's a really weird kind of lyric to have in a song anyway. But it's all about not being able to think of lyrics to a song.
You know, it's kind of funny, and this is kind of a bit tangential, but I was watching a TED Talk back when I used to watch TED Talks.
Was it Ty Lopez's TED Talk?
It was not. That was actually a TEDx Talk.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
And there were like 10 people in the room.
Well, that's true. But there were like 14 bookshelves.
Actually, he was here in his garage.
Here in my garage.
With some kind of car he rented. Probably a Lamborghini.
It was actually a green screen over his
You were saying?
Prius. Anyhow, some guy was talking about how 4 a.m. has become a huge trope in songs, movies, just in literature. It's like it's the time when no one should be up. It's a pretty overused trope.
Well, that's weird because like you would think some people would gravitate towards 3 a.m. in the paranormal community is the witching hour, and because it's like I don't know, the Holy Trinity is 3 and whatever. It's like that's when demons and ghosts come out to like spit in the face of Jesus or something. But
so is that what Anna Nalick was writing about?
Sure. As soon as you explain to me who that is, then
sure. The song it's 3 a.m. Da, 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 da. Cars off the cable. And
oh yeah, she's
horses out of the stable.
It's because of all the demons and the ghosts. If you listen to those lyrics, you can actually like put together that she's haunted by a series of poltergeists. Anyway.
Well, if she ever releases her album on vinyl, we could see if there's any backmasking.
And it probably is, for sure.
Oh, tons. Anyhow, so...
It's all just about how Paul's dead still.
Well, before we lose our last listener, we should probably get back to the topic on hand.
I guess. Yeah, so boxing movies. You had never seen Rocky.
I had never seen Rocky. The funny thing is I knew all of the tropes, so to speak. The I don't want to use that word too much, but...
I feel like it's appropriate. It's a very I don't know too many words whole, synonymous to trope.
Like I remember 5 years ago we were at a baseball game and I ran up the stairs at the parking garage and I jumped at the top and I was like,
with your arms out.
Yeah.
And you're like, yo, Adrian, I did it.
And as I was running up the stairs, I remember going like dun 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 dun. It's like I knew what it was from because I mean Rocky is so interwoven into our culture that you can't like grow up and not know who Rocky is. That
was something I was going to ask you. Did you know that there's a statue of Rocky in Philadelphia that's been up since, I think, the first movie?
I did not.
Yeah, and I think like it's still up there. It's literally in Rocky 3.
Was it chiseled by Sylvester himself?
Yes, that's why he looks more like Adonis and less like some fellow with Down syndrome.
Well, you know what? I would probably do the same thing in his shoes. in his Chuck Taylors.
If I had creative control of my own statue, yeah, I would probably chisel out a few extra pounds. And
is he wearing Chucks?
No, I think it's like his ring attire. So he's wearing like a pair of trunks, and he's got his hands up like in the end of the movie.
Were they red trunks with the white stripe or white trunks with the red stripe?
Did you know? So that's actually, I was reading some trivia about this. That reason that part of the movie is even in there is because it wasn't like an actual mess up by like the team. So like the people responsible for making that prop did the shorts color backwards. So Rocky had to like basically talk about it in that scene. He's like, well, actually, I'm wearing different colored trunks.
That's the color. That's really. It's good that they embraced that because it kind of drove home how no one cared who Rocky was.
Yeah, I think it made the movie better because like that's kind of the idea is he's this nobody who's getting this shot of a lifetime.
Just imagine if they put up Apollo Creed by accident, had him wearing like Russian shorts or North Korean shorts.
I was going to say some kind of communist country. Yeah,
some red shorts with like a hammer and sickle on them.
I feel like that would be a bigger. I mean, that's kind of. For multiple reasons, that would be a much bigger deal.
Nope, I think it's apples to apples.
Or have him in a Confederate flag shorts. That would probably be the worst.
But I mean, I think that was a great way. It was kind of fortuitous because that really stuck with me, and I was thinking about it last night. This is something I brought up with you before. People usually don't write mistakes into movies. They don't write sneezes. They don't write coughs. They don't write printing errors into movies.
Right, unless you're making like Sharknado or like The Room. Yeah, things don't. Well, actually,
like scary movie.
That was another thing I read about this movie, though. Gazzo, like the mafia guy he's working for. So, like, there's a part in the movie though where he takes a hit off his inhaler, and the actor actually needed that and had asthma, and like was having an asthma attack on set. But they left that in the movie, which I think is kind of funny. But
how do you get by as trying to come off as a badass loan shark with leg breakers that work for you, and you have asthma? I
mean, because it's all a psychological game. He's obviously got that that guard working for him, that other dude who hates Rocky for literally no reason.
The funny thing is that like they embraced that stuff and it made the movie feel more genuine.
Right. Yeah.
Like the shorts thing, I thought of that and I thought either that was a genius, either they embraced an error or that was a really genius writing decision.
Well, I think the part that reinforces it for me too is Paulie being like, hey, can I get you some kind of sponsorship if it makes me a few bucks? And Rocky seeing it as an opportunity to be like, yeah, go ahead. Like, this is never going to happen to me ever again. It's weird that it's happening the first time,
Yeah.
Another thing that's interesting about that movie, like, so there's that iconic scene you're talking about during his training montage where he's like running through the different parts of Philadelphia and like through the fruit market and stuff like that. So that was all shot like guerrilla style without any permits and stuff. And like literally people's reactions to like looking at him and being like, oh, look, it's this dude running through the streets, or like, oh, it's this dude running through the streets, because Sylvester Stallone isn't like famous for anything really at that point. So it's just like, it's almost shot like a YouTube video. So people's reactions there are actually very natural. Like there's this guy who I kind of throws him an orange in that scene, and it's become like, I don't know, it's kind of a cool thing because that dude's literally just a fruit vendor who like threw this dude an orange and didn't even know he was in a movie. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
I wonder if orange sales quadrupled or skyrocketed.
I mean, after that guy was in them, I don't know. I assume like large parts of tourism in Philadelphia increased in 1977 through 1980 or whatever.
At least to those stairs.
Yeah, that was something that's cool. In the end of Rocky Balboa, they have basically at the end of the movie they have a bunch of scenes of people running up the stairs for themselves and doing their own like celebrations, kind of like doing what you're talking about. Or it's like, I mean, it's in itself a cliche now of something to do while you're in Philadelphia. So people do it all the time.
Fair enough. I think I would probably just take the elevator.
Escalator right next to it, yeah. Or whatever, however they're going to get me and my Amigo scooter up those stairs so I can celebrate at the top.
They have the rascal
it had better be
ramp.
handicap accessible.
Absolutely. And interestingly enough, we are not just talking about one boxing movie tonight. We're talking about two, and one of them has some similarities to. Well, one of them. The other movie has some similarities to Rocky.
This whole thing happened basically because I was like, "Hey, John, have you ever seen Rocky?" And he was like, "No." And like naturally, I should have been like aghast. I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" But it's a cult classic. Blah blah blah. Whatever. He's like, "Whatever." Have you ever seen The Hammer? And I was like, "No. What is that?" So explain to the people, John, what is The Hammer?
Well, a fellow famous podcaster and personal hero of mine, Adam Carolla, put a movie together shot a movie. He wrote and shot a movie in 2007 called The Hammer. And it's kind of like a modern take on Rocky, but it's definitely its own movie. It's not like
there are elements of homage there for sure, but it's
absolutely.
Not. It doesn't reek of it or anything.
No, it's a very sarcastic movie. At least the character is very sarcastic.
They parody a few pretty famous scenes, like Rocky breaking the eggs into the glass and drinking it, or like him hitting the alarm clock when it goes off at like 5 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, and then in The Hammer, the alarm goes off at 5 and he keeps hitting snooze, and eventually he's up at like 11:30 in the morning.
Yeah,
you see the coffee makers making coffee, and he's like hitting a punching bag in the living room.
Right.
That's when he finally rolled out of bed.
There's another part that's pretty funny about how he talks about, because there are two different love stories in both of these movies, and I think The Hammer is a more realistic depiction of a love story,
and less rapey for sure.
yeah, definitely by leaps and bounds, less rapey. But there's a part that I thought was really funny where he's like, "Yeah, I basically can't see you too." Like, like this girl kind of stops taking an interest in Adam Carolla's character. So he's like, well, that's okay. I'm like, I have a full-time boxing regimen and stuff anyway. And then it cuts to him like basically bouncing a super ball off the wall, like in a chair. And you're like, oh, I got it. It's funny. Like everyone acts like Rocky would have no time in the world to even have a girlfriend. But this dude's like literally spending hours at a time just like watching paint dry.
Now, the gist of the movie and The Hammer is there's a slacker that Adam Carolla plays. He kind of works here and there as a carpenter, but he never really applies himself. And he used to be a regional boxing champ. But this is 20 years in the future. He can't afford insurance on his truck.
I feel like that's a similar. I mean, like that's part of what's the homage kind of to like Rocky is that he could have had a chance, or like, he didn't have the management. Basically.
But instead he just works a crappy job and just gets by. He ekes by.
But no, like, I guess the obvious difference in character is you get the sense that like the best Rocky could be in terms of like his intellect is being a boxer or whatever. Like in Adam Carolla's character, they show a lot of like, oh, he's clever and he's like got a bunch of one-liners. He's very quick on his on his feet.
And the slightly unbelievable part of the movie is that he's like kind of wiry. He's not really built like a boxer. I think he lightweight or
he ends up fighting in the 178, which would be the light heavyweight.
Light heavyweight, okay. But he's definitely not. It doesn't appear like someone that could kick anyone's butt. But
no.
I think that was what the goal was. He was kind of like, what the gist was. He was a sleeper in a sense.
Right. And the whole thing behind his is more about being able to tell a story than like having believability or whatever.
And I think he had kind of gotten to the point in his life where he was a slacker, and then he finally found his groove and made a life for himself, made a living. So like he was kind of like self-indulgent in a way for him to be able to make the movie he always wanted to make, with different elements of his own life, and then act out in that movie.
Well, I'd love to hear his inspirations and motivations for making the movie and all that stuff. So maybe we'll get him on the podcast at some point. But
yeah, I mean, I know our schedule is pretty booked, but we might be able to move some stuff around to get Adam Carolla on the podcast for sure. Especially if it's to talk about Adam Carolla.
I would love to. Look forward to that happening in 2020.
And by that we mean 2024.
Tentatively, and pencil in very lightly.
So yeah, I've never seen Rocky until, I finished it last night, and I had seen bits and pieces. I had known most of the major scenes, but I actually hadn't really known much about Apollo Creed and his character, and I didn't really realize that that was part of the plot, where Rocky got to go fight a very popular fighter. I just thought that Rocky kind of worked his way up.
I don't know how much of the hammer is kind of like an homage, but I think like the idea is that both of these guys have like a 1 in a million shot to do something amazing. And I feel like the Rocky one is even less believable.
Yeah.
Because like the heavyweight champion of the world just pulls this dude's name out of a giant leather-bound Wikipedia of random boxers. Like,
the Italian stallion, I'll fight that guy.
It makes sense because like Amerigo Vespucci, he's Italian, whatever. Like I can't remember what his logic was necessarily. It's something
about exploiting Americana. He wanted it to be a very American fight, which is evidenced by how he showed up. He was wearing a Stars and Stripes boxers. Boxing shorts. I showed
John a clip from Rocky IV, and it only gets worse. Like in terms of Apollo Creed and his like pageantry for the United States.
It's very flamboyant.
But like he's still a very charming character, like you were saying. He's probably your favorite.
Oh yeah, as I watched the movie and as I got towards the end, I started to like Rocky more and saw him less as an anti-hero and more as just a decent guy who got kind of a bad shake.
Then I think the movie worked. Like, I was going to ask you, this movie is, it's coming up on being 40 years old this year, I think.
Yeah, I think it's
it's 1976
years old.
So this would be 40, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was 77, but
no,
yeah,
76. So it'd be like 40 years now.
So it came out. So it was shot over 40 years ago. It came out 40 years ago.
So it's 4 decades past the time it was shot. So like, did the movie still work for you? Like, do you see? You saw elements of the movie and you're like, oh, okay, this is good filmmaking. This isn't. Or
it did a good job to me of painting the picture of Pennsylvania or Philadelphia after the steel boom had popped or the bubble had burst. With Bethlehem Steel. Laying off thousands of workers and whatnot, and it kind of like it had a very depressing air to it.
Yeah,
you could see the poverty.
I feel like movies that get picked up as being like, oh man, this is really artistic, or like this is really great, have that sense of realism, because I think a lot of problems with movies, you watch movies and you're like, she's a high-powered executive who just can't find love, and he's blah blah blah. It's like you never see any of the characters have like, oh man, I need to jump out. I need to run out on this check because like I forgot that I don't have my wallet and it doesn't have any money in it anyway.
And some movies pull it off in a way that makes it seem like it's funny, but this one pulled off like it just showed how gritty it could be, like not having money and then also just being depressed. Like you see characters like Paulie. He has no shot. He's going to cut meat for the rest of his life, and he's like descended into alcoholism because of it.
And he's like constantly begging Rocky for some extra work as like a leg breaker. Like,
but he's like getting to the point where he's like incoherent because he's drowning his sorrow so much in alcohol.
Right.
He can't even like function.
You even see it in the little details in Rocky's like apartment and stuff. This is the first time I noticed this during kind of the rape scene, which is how we're going to basically, how we're going to be talking about Rocky and Adrian's relationship is,
Stockholm syndrome.
You kind of get to see though, like into Rocky's apartment for a second, and I never noticed this before, but there's a mattress like leaned up against the wall with like kind of a Rambo style like Bowie knife, literally just stabbed into the mattress. Which, by the way, if you're gonna have a woman come over into your apartment and stuff, clean some of that stuff up.
Yeah, and don't try to bed her right in front of the front door.
and don't block her from leaving.
Yeah, no, you should like let her have a clear escape route. You should like mark the exits.
And if she's saying things like, I don't think I should be here, I don't want to be here, I want to call my brother.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a sign to be like, all right, hold off some of the rapey stuff to like second or third date.
Go to the restroom, take care of business, go back, and be a respectful man.
I feel like that's a bit much. I would probably just be like, all right, this date's obviously over. This girl is scared out of her mind.
I've gotten shot down on dates before, and all you do is you just say, I guess we're not meant to be together.
Or let's try this again some other night.
There are plenty of other nearly 40-year-old spinster cat ladies in Philadelphia.
The point being, you don't have to like lick your lips and be like, take off your glasses. Take off your hat. Do me a favor. I'm going to kiss you. You can kiss me back if you want, but you don't have to.
It's only consensual if you kiss back. The scene made me very uncomfortable, and I don't know if it's because I was watching it with you a few inches away.
Yeah,
but
well, maybe. And like I had also definitely prefaced the idea too. I mean, I'd planned it in your mind, like this is a rape scene, which like I don't know. I guess like I watched this movie myself probably 2 or 3 decades after it first came out, and I'm thinking like, is this what a real romance is? Like, do women watch this movie and they're like, yeah, that's what I wish I had. Yeah,
and here's the thing too. Like, it wasn't like this was what they're doing was shameful. Like, this was, I don't know, 10, 15 years after the age of free love had begun. The women's liberation movement had already occurred. Like, women were allowed to have sex before they got married. So it was really weird to see not only that whole scene go down the way it did with
but I know where you're heading with this, but Paulie's reaction.
Yeah, Paulie's reaction. You're busted? You busted my sister?
My 40-year-old kid sister had sex for the first time?
That was extremely awkward to watch.
I'm going to throw a turkey out the door. I mean, I think you already did that, right?
Yeah, I wonder if that scene was written to illustrate just how messed up Paulie was.
Yeah, and like maybe the idea that, I mean, maybe he is always at least 2 sheets to the wind. I don't know.
Yeah, and Rocky was pretty respectful or respectable. I would say respectful about Adrian, whereas he didn't want to talk about it.
Like, I mean, you never see Adrian's parents or anything. Like, you kind of assume they're out of the picture, and that's why she's living with Paulie or whatever.
Yeah. But like, he wasn't like, yeah, man, banged out your sister.
Right. He's like, I've got, good intentions. I
don't want to talk about this.
I'd like to talk to you about your sister. I'd like to take her on a date.
After he got his ass kicked, what does he look for? He doesn't look for anyone but Adrian.
Right. Exactly.
That's the very end of the movie. They find each other. They embrace. Roll credits. So, I think they're really trying to illustrate, or he was really trying to illustrate that he was a well-intentioned character.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, the more you watch the Rocky series, the more you see kind of like the altruistic sides of Rocky come out. And
if Sylvester Stallone was writing this movie today, I mean, with today's climate, he would not have written that love scene that way. I just think that was socially acceptable back then. Like, that wasn't considered consensual. It was just the man's duty to be forceful.
Right. Yeah. Like, there was still that idea of like, bash a woman over the head and drag her back to your cave a little bit. I mean, definitely way more than today, where it's like that's the farthest thing from anyone's conception of what's acceptable.
Everyone's got their consent form and triplicate folded up in their wallet.
Right.
Yeah, after you check the ID and all that.
Naturally.
But no, I mean, we've definitely evolved as a culture.
Right. I mean,
but at the time, that wasn't considered. I mean, she had the opportunity to leave, I think, but at the same time, he was very pushy, and there was an awkward scene. Yeah, that's not how I would recommend doing that.
No, I mean, it's not aged well for sure, but it's also 40 years old.
I just don't think it was intention to be a rape scene.
No, it wasn't, and I
don't think it was either.
And honestly, like, I don't know. I just wish there was more development between. I feel like that scene happens in that movie, and then immediately afterward.
Sitting on a couch.
Yeah, Adrian's together. Like, we're married. Like, I mean, like, that's, I don't know, maybe that's how it was in the 70s.
Want to be roommates?
Right. So I don't know. Like, yeah, as soon as that's over, though, like, she's in it 100%. So I don't know. That scene, hasn't aged well for sure. But I mean, like, yeah, so the Hammer's got its own love story. Like, what's your thoughts on that telling of a love story?
I think the Hammer's love story is very practical, and it's also kind of like an unlikely romance. I think that you would look at Adam Carolla's character and the woman he's interested in, who's an attorney, and you would say, "Oh, they would never get together." But kind of showed. I think both movies kind of showed the whole American dream thing, where you can do what you want, you can date who you want as long as they consent, and you can perform in any sport you want if you just are willing to work for it or have the confidence or the drive and whatnot. So
honestly, I felt like that romance was not like shoehorned in or whatever, but I think it definitely hit more cliches, I think, than Adrian and Rocky's relationship.
Well, Adrian and Rocky's hit no cliches.
No, yeah. I mean,
they had no chemistry. He's just like, he went to the pet store every day to look at frogs and toads and turtles.
You know what, though? I think it's still a really cute story about a guy who doesn't always know the right thing to say, which is definitely like in complete contrast to like, Adam Carolla's. What's Adam Carolla's character named in that movie? Do you remember?
No.
Jack,
maybe?
Didn't really matter. But like, so that character obviously knows exactly what to say, has a plan in mind. I think like the thing that you see in Rocky and Adrian's relationship is that
Rocky has no plan.
He doesn't. And like, he doesn't know what to say. And he's self-admittedly not like the most intelligent person in the world. So he just knows what he wants. And like, that's his goal.
Or even in like the 97 or the
but I think, you look at like the skating, scene and stuff like that. And even though that guy is counting out minutes like they're seconds, like, because he's like 7 minutes, and then like 1 minute later he's like 3 minutes, and like 20 seconds later he's like, yeah, time.
That was like a one continuous shot too. So I think the guy was taking advantage of the fact that Rocky was not that sharp.
Right. So, but no, I think that scene is really like kind of sweet, and like, I don't know, even though Adrian's really shy and stuff, like Rocky's kind of saying like, oh, this is who I am as a person, and like I'm a little simple and whatever, but like I care about the things I care about, and
I think she was intelligent too, and I think she had like done well in school or something. So it was weird to see her working at a pet store because they didn't really drive that point home. But maybe that was just trying to illustrate how little opportunity there was in Philadelphia for anyone. They
always say that she's really intelligent and stuff, but I never see it like in character development. Like,
she did date Rocky.
She seems nearly autistic. Like, if I'm being honest, I think she's like just weird. She's like, I don't know, she's shy, but I almost like every time I watched that movie, and the first time I watched it too, I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. She's got some kind of like mental disorder for sure, and like Rocky still likes her.
That's so nice for each other. They can date people with mental disorder.
Right. Like Rocky's getting all the brains he has left punched out of his head, and she's a little punchy already. So like, whatever. But I don't know. Like, they don't really express Adrian, especially in the first movie, as having that distinctive a personality, I don't think.
And it's interesting. They took an actress who I believe was fairly attractive, and they just tried to make her look as unattractive as possible.
That's a trope in itself, though. Like, I don't know. It's very
the ugly girl trope.
Who's like, oh, look, if you take her hair tie out of a ponytail and like take her glasses off, she's a knockout. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think Talia Shire is, there's a cuteness to her for sure. She's not like,
she looked better in the Godfather as was it Corleone?
Yeah, it's probably something Corleone.
No, well, there were other families in that movie.
I know, yeah, but
Connie. She was the girl that got her butt kicked, and then the son went to go.
Are you ready for a big gasp moment?
You've never seen The Godfather?
I sure haven't.
Well, we'll discuss that at some point.
Good thing I have a movie podcast. Let's talk more about The Hammer. I feel like Rocky's really dominating the conversation at this point, so I want to hear what you like about The Hammer and like why you recommended it to me.
Well, I like The Hammer because I like Adam Carolla's sense of humor. I love his rants. I think he's definitely a role model to those of us who didn't want to finish college or even go to college, but who still figure that there could be a way to become successful. Because Adam Carolla was a slacker, and then he just kind of one day decided he was going to work his way up in life. And if you kind of look at his story, you'll see that he's overcome some pretty crazy odds to be where he's at now, all while having a great sense of humor. I was listening to this guy when I was 15 years old, locked in my room with just a radio, listening to Loveline with him and Dr. Drew, and just the dude cracked my shit up back then, and he still does now. So naturally, when I hear he released a movie, I wanted to check it out, and it was entertaining. It was well written.
Yeah,
there were definitely some tropes. Like, now that you mentioned that the relationship was a bit a cliche. In every way.
Yeah, like you can read. That was my thing about this movie. I still like the movie a lot, but it didn't. There was no point during the movie. I don't think I was at least 1 or 2 steps ahead, and like I was right at every corner too.
Yeah,
so
it's not, you knew that she was going to come back in the end,
right? Like, but it's not. The movie's not trying to trick me. It's not like she's going to come back, but then she was like secretly the bad guy the whole time. Actually, the corner manager for like both the guys or whatever, the manager for the gym, I didn't see that coming. That was the one thing. Like, I didn't know that he was being a scumbag and just using this guy as like
a free punching bag.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so that didn't come across to me at first. But then like, you know, that plot line was developed pretty well. And like that took me for a surprise kind of at every turn. But everything else about the movie is pretty, I mean, I could see it coming.
And there's another trope too, which is like the inner city black guy who you don't get along with, but then like you get along with him and you become friends, even though you're from different cultures. You break the barriers between your cultures to become friends, even though you guys were enemies for no reason at all whatsoever.
Right. It's a different story than like the uptown girl who ends up becoming an English teacher and moving into like the inner city to teach like kids how to read or whatever. But like it's a version of that story that we've seen other places and stuff. But
and some of the stuff too, like the black guy, and I shouldn't call him the black guy. He has a name just like Adam Carolla's character has a name.
Yeah, but I mean, like Adam Carolla's character to me is the white guy. Like,
yeah, okay. So the white guy was like, I want to drive home from this boxing match, and the black guy's
part
like,
of the movie, by the way.
He's like, no, I want to drive home. And the white guy's like, well, you know, I like to drive. But black guy's like, no, I want to drive home. And it was kind of an awkward exchange. So, of course, you know, the black guy's driving home.
No, I don't think it, you know what? I'll interject there to say that I think it was pretty natural in terms of like, hey, you drove here on the way up, man. You've got to be exhausted. Like, you just.
Yeah, and they were becoming more.
You spent a whole day getting punched in the face, too, just like I did. Like, I'll drive home.
Okay, that may not be a trope, but then the whole, like, getting pulled over. Switch seats with me, man. I got warrants. Okay, that's never been done before.
Well, I'm not saying that it hasn't, but I think like that's just funny in general. Like that whole scene made the movie for me.
None of the windows are tinted too, and of course, you know they switch seats, and the cop is none the wiser.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you want to look at problems in the movies, like I mean, they're there. They're definitely. I mean, every movie has kind of things that don't make the most sense, or continuity issues, or things that, like, especially with Rocky, don't age well. One thing that comes to mind is like it's a news story that there's a man at the local meat factory who's punching the meat you're buying at the local store, and like that's a news story, not because like, oh man, look at all these like rules and regulations they must be breaking by the health code. It's a story about how like, look, there's a local boxer who's punching meat in this factory. So I don't know, but
yeah, and it's funny because like he said, oh well, the owner knows I do it, and he said it's okay. Okay, end of discussion.
Oh, well, then that's fine.
That's
fine.
Yeah, say no more.
But that's 1976 too, so
I mean, that was before the formation of the USDA, right?
I don't know about that, but I'm getting a nod from our producer. No.
And then you may hear there is a boxing match of sorts, kind of like a mixed martial arts fight going on downstairs.
I don't think we're picking it up, but yeah, apparently the two dogs are trying to squash the beef downstairs. So if any of that does come through, it's just one of John's dogs is trying to kill the other one. So like, whatever.
And so one thing I didn't like.
Michael Vick came into the studio earlier, and that's such a dated reference.
Yeah. That's a 10-year-old reference now. Almost.
I'm old. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, 9 years old. It was 2007. So it's funny because Paulie wanted that to go down at the meat, the meat mart. No,
yeah, the
slaughterhouse place.
Right.
So here's the weird thing: Paulie doesn't own the place. He doesn't run the place. He just cuts meat, but not with a bandsaw, with a knife.
Right.
Like
yeah.
So there's like probably about 1 million pounds of meat going around on this like dry cleaner's rack type thing.
Why do you think Paulie drinks, John?
And here he's sitting there just cutting meat with a fillet knife. Like, this looks like a good steak.
Yeah, this.
Like, could you guys not afford a bandsaw? Try to look like you're legit. Like,
okay, the budget for the movie was like less than $1 million. But
like, it seemed like it was kind of hastily put together. And then he says, like, basically throw me a bone, Rocky, on this interview. So what does Paulie do? He tries to get in the shot, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna have to do the shot again.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
when the newscaster's there.
Well,
it's scripted. So then,
I don't know if it came across to you at all, but like, Paulie's one of those like self-climbing whatever people. Like he's just always trying to obviously get ahead any way he can, and like I get it because like his life sucks, right?
But so then he's like, throw me a bone. So Rocky's like, well, my friend Paulie works here, and he threw him a bone, but Rocky didn't realize that Paulie just wanted some publicity, I guess. So he comes home screaming at Rocky, "Oh, you did nothing for me. You didn't give me publicity, blah blah blah." If it just goes to illustrate what a piece of shit Paulie is.
Well, good news, John. If you didn't like Paulie in Rocky 1, he only comes back in Rockies 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I think he's in 5. I've never seen 5. I've been told by 1 million people just steer clear completely.
So we're gonna have to watch it, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
So is he a wonderful person in all those movies?
I think it's Rocky 3 is the one where he goes into an arcade and he's drinking. So he's got like, I don't know, 40 or something in some brown paper bag. And like, he goes into this arcade and he sees a Rocky pinball machine. So he just like naturally he takes it and he's like throws the 40 ounce like at the pinball machine at the back, and it like breaks and all these like buzzers and alarms start going off. That's one of the scenes in that movie. It's just one of those things where like Paulie's just mad that Rocky is successful. It has literally nothing else to do with like why Paulie should be upset at all, other than like Rocky is successful, and that doesn't immediately mean that because I know like Rocky somewhat firsthand, or he's like married to my sister, that I'm not also immediately successful and have lots of money.
Well, actually, Paulie is a lot more relaxed in the upcoming Rocky movie, the one where the tagline is Paulie finally gets busted.
The 80-year-old virgin, Rocky 7 or 8 or whatever. I mean, I guess Rocky. I guess it'd be Rocky 7 because Creed's its own thing, but it's not really, but it kind of is.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I think. I mean, it follows Apollo Creed's son, so like I don't know, whatever.
So did they have any like songs like "My Sacrifice" or "Higher" in the soundtrack to that film?
Yeah, Higher was in there for sure. For a second, they sampled it because they didn't want to pay Creed for like the actual.
Was the quality control guy from The Office in that movie as well?
And his name's also Creed, I guess.
Yes.
All right. And you have anything else? Any other terrible jokes?
Nope.
All right. So make a note. I guess there's no way to tell you. You can skip past until this point. So never mind.
I think how would I heard it through the grapevine? Is that on the soundtrack?
Yeah. So what else about the Hammer are we missing here? Like, I think the love story, I mean, it's cute and it's got its quirks and stuff. And like, I think it's technically cuter than Adrian and Rocky's relationship just based on like the dialogue and whatever. But I think
the character's cuter.
It's more cliche. And like, I think what really makes Adrian and Rocky's relationship look better is the end of the movie, like you're talking about, like, Rocky's just been getting beat on for 12 rounds. Looks like, he looks like a bruised steak himself. And then like the first thing he's saying is like, where's Adrian? Like,
whereas in the Hammer, like they don't have that same loyalty for each other at all. Like she leaves to go get a job somewhere else. And then she comes back because I'm guessing it didn't work out.
Right.
But she just says that she could live without him.
Well, they also don't get to build that moment because, like, the climactic end moment for the Hammer is, yeah, like where he could knock this dude out and like go to the Olympics. Like he could put this dude on the mat. And he
makes it clear that he could kick the dude's ass, but then he just hugs him, so he lets the guy win by points.
Right. Exactly. So
TKO.
Sorry, spoilers. I mean, I don't know, like, it's still a fantastic movie. Like, I kind of saw that moment coming up, and as soon as, like, they kind of went to slow-mo, and I saw, like, he could basically punch this dude, I'm like, he's not going to do it. Like, they were building up to that moment and everything. I think it was a fitting reward to, like, the viewers to be like, oh, this is a really cool story.
And the nice thing, too, is, like, it's kind of a practical movie. Like, the character doesn't like become wealthy in the end, but like it shows he finally gets his contractor's license and he starts kind of building a moderate life for himself.
Well, and he's about to start managing like an Olympic athlete, so
there's that too.
I mean, that's helpful, but like
it's not going to pay a lot of money, but it's going to be something.
That's what I like more about that movie, though. It doesn't show like. It's not showing you like, oh, he's about to have all kinds of money and stuff and whatever. Like you get into that in the different Rocky movies, like, oh, Rocky's more successful now and like people care who he is. This isn't necessarily about that. It's more about like Adam Carolla's character, who we really should have known the name for. But like, I mean, it kind of in a way it doesn't matter because like you just see him as being Adam Carolla. But like
it's Adam Carolla and the black guy.
Right, exactly. You could have called it that. I think you would have gotten in more trouble, probably. The Hammer's a better name for the movie. But, like, I think you see him still hit that point where he's like, oh, he's kind of self-actualized in, like, some of the decisions he's made. And, like, he's happy in his life and where he's at.
I like, too, that it kind of shows, it's not as gritty as Rocky by any means, but it kind of shows how much life can suck when you don't have money.
The movie where in the training montage he's riding a unicycle isn't as gritty as...
Okay. I'm talking about where he's using a feminine hygiene pad to make coffee because he's out of coffee filters.
He's Adam Carolla, so like, it's got to be funny. Like, I mean, the sense of humor in that movie definitely comes along, and it's very Adam Carolla, and it is still really funny. But like,
what about? I said to say my favorite line in the movie is they're in this museum of like tar,
the La Brea tar pits in California.
Yeah, so they're looking at this mural on the wall that shows 24,000 years ago humans were evolved into this, and Adam Carolla says, 24,000 years, someone hasn't been reading their Bible.
Yeah, I definitely laughed at that part, too.
Really, really snarky humor of his.
Naturally.
But here's the thing, like, there's a lot of those types of jokes, but then you have, like, a lot of stupid, like, ABC Family type jokes, too. So, like, I wonder if he'd, like, relinquish some creative control. Like, at the very end, it's just him and his Mexican friend, or Honduran friend, Nicaraguan friend,
jeez.
They're just making these stupid, like, ABC Family level jokes, and it's just, like, it's very cliche, very passé. But you get that, then you get the really witty, dry humor from Adam Carolla as well.
I think you got to make everyone on the set happy, like who has, like at least a certain level of influence. So different things come through as like different people have their mark on the movie. And that's probably not, I mean, the ABC Family type humor at the end probably isn't obviously Adam Carolla inspired, but it's probably coming from notes from the studio or something. Like it's coming from somewhere.
Or some focus group, maybe.
Right.
Like, hey, we didn't get half your jokes.
Your jokes were too smart.
Yeah, because we didn't get them.
Make better jokes for us.
Make better jokes to appeal to our 24,000-year-old ancestors.
Right. So, so I don't know, like two very similar in some ways and two very different movies.
Yeah, both low budget.
Yeah.
Rocky, very low budget, as was The Hammer. I would imagine that. I have nothing to back this up. I would imagine inflation adjusted, they spent the exact same amount on each movie.
Probably. And you know what's funny? Like, I mean, they're both passion projects too, really, which like usually when someone has their passion project, like it doesn't end well. But like both of these movies, I think they're both really good in their own respects, for sure. Yeah.
I think that Adam Carolla's movie was a little less of a performer than than Rocky.
Slightly.
But I would say it's a sleeper hit, so it just hasn't woken up yet.
It wasn't written with the same things in mind. Like, it's not gritty, like you're saying. It's not.
It wasn't an epic or anything of the
right.
sort. It was it's a funny.
It wasn't
movie.
made to go to film festivals or whatever. Like, I mean, like Rocky really is a pretty smart movie. Even being 40 years old, I think there are things you can look at in that movie and be like, huh, that's pretty cool.
It was one of the first of its kind. Like that genre has been done to death.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at this point,
okay, let's name some movies. What's the one with Mark Wahlberg in Pittsburgh?
The Fighter?
No, he gets to play for a football team.
Invincible?
But
Mark Wahlberg also does a boxing movie. Like
The Fighter.
Yeah, and so like Ali. What else?
The one with Clint Eastwood as the trainer.
Oh.
With the girl fighter.
Gran Torino.
No.
$1 Million Baby?
Yeah, is that kind of like that?
I've another gasp coming out from this guy who has a movie podcast. Never seen it.
Me either.
I know there's a big twist where like she falls in the stool and like either dies or gets paralyzed. I don't know.
Yeah, but no spoiler alerts or no spoilers or anything.
I don't know. Whatever. Who cares?
What other movies are there of like rags to riches, sports fame?
Oh, okay.
So many.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton. Rocky 2.
Non-Rocky.
Oh, non-Rocky movie. I mean, there's a lot of them out there just because I can't think of it right now. Like, I mean, the sports genre is a big thing.
So it's been done to death, but it hadn't been done to death before Rocky.
No, not.
And that's the important thing. So that you see a movie like The Hammer, a fun passion project, a funny movie, but didn't really break any.
Well, it was the first sports movie to ever win for Best Picture, like, and probably one of the only ones since to ever have that honor too. I'm pretty sure.
What about that one with the Blind Side? Didn't that win some stuff?
Yeah, like 38 years later. I said it was the first one, not the only one.
Oh, the first. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just
I'm not hearing the words that you're saying.
It narrowly beat out. Well, that's good because I'm talking into a microphone on a podcast that's going directly
straight into my
ears,
cans. Yes.
Right. So if you can't hear
From
me,
your mouth to my ears.
If you can't hear me, that's probably really good. Yeah. So it was the first by a scant 38 years or so. I don't know. So you've seen both movies now, and obviously you have a bias. I have a bias. Which of these do you think is the better movie?
Oh, come on.
Well, I'm going to...
You can't compare.
Okay.
You can't
Here's
say,
the thing.
like, I like an apple. I think apples are superior to oranges.
No one's ever used that analogy before. Are you the first?
I think I'm going to trademark that because I think I am the first.
Nice. Well, I was going to say kind of something similar. It's like they're equal. I don't think... Yeah, it's like one's... so much newer than the other, like at least 30 years newer than the other. And I mean, they're both telling a different story. Like, I think if they were both kind of like the exact same story, you could better compare the two, but it's not about like, I don't really get the sense that Adam Carolla's character really even believes himself that he could actually do these things.
No.
Whereas Rocky definitely does, So
And that's what I like about The Hammer is that it's kind of just like a sarcastic, realistic observations of this man. He knows that he can do great things, but he knows he's not going to beat. Right. He's not going to be Pacquiao or...
Yeah, Adam Carolla's character, it's a story about how he wants to finally apply himself and show that he's, got some determination and can do some things for himself.
And achieve a small goal.
Right, reach some of his potential. And I think Rocky is it's different. It's all about him having a shot at, the heavyweight title and taking it deadly seriously and, just being like, hey, no one else thinks I can do this. No one else thinks I have a chance, and I'm going to do it. So,
but I mean, look at Rocky. He got contacted by the best fighter in the biz, whereas Adam worked his way up basically by just deciding he wanted to start boxing again. So,
right, and the manager of the gym really secretly treating him like a sack of potatoes to be beat on. So,
yes. Well, there is that.
Yeah. All right. There you have it. These movies are equal, and if anyone says that one's better than the other, they're completely ignorant.
So we've got another section. We have another another bit, not a bit. What do you call it in a podcast?
I don't know.
Feature. Okay,
Get on with it already.
We got another featurette that we haven't named yet, but it's like, when we did the gaming podcast, we would say, "What have you been playing this week?"
Oh, okay.
We'll talk about what we've been watching this week.
Sure. Okay. You want me to start out, or
yeah?
Okay. So right before I got here, John let me know. I'm gonna be. We're going to start things out or try to start things out.
That's something.
And about, okay, so that's where it starts. And then he's like, yeah, maybe 8, 8:30, 9. So but by the time I hear 8 o'clock, it's 6:30 and I'm like, I have an hour and a half to fill. So I watched Sharkenstein today. And I mean, I'm all about these crappy B movies that are campy for the sake of being campy, and obviously the CGI isn't what it could be, and the acting isn't what it could be, but this was a different level of cringe. It was like a Z movie. It was really bad. Really terrible practical effects, reusing the same shot 12 or more times.
Can I go on a Adam Carolla-esque rant about these movies real quick?
Yeah, sure.
It's super quick. So everyone loved scary movies. Scary movie 1, 2, 3, and people love. Oh gosh, I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, people love the first Sharknado because they weren't trying to be a certain they weren't trying to fulfill certain tropes of with the case of Scary Movie. It was kind of a parody of scary movies, but then they became a parody of parodies of scary movies.
Right. When
you get not another scary movie or not another teen movie or epic movie, and then they just went into the garbage can.
Right.
They just got really bad. And the same goes with the Sharknado movies. I think the first Sharknado, they were just trying to make a funny, really preposterous movie, and now they're just intentionally making shitty movies. Hey, we're making a shitty movie. This movie is shit. It's going to be the shittiest movie you've ever seen. I guarantee it. Why?
Well, it's like rolling your eyes at a movie you're already rolling your eyes at, but so much so that it's like a particle accelerator now, and it's a surprise you're not rolling your eyes out of your head. It's just I don't know. I mean, who's the joke for anymore? Or and with that series in particular, it's starting to bother me now. How many people are like, I want a cameo, or we want to put our product in our movie and stuff.
Yeah, it's just getting really well when they had Jared from Subway in one of the Sharknadoes, didn't they? Yeah,
and he saved a bunch of kids and then ran out of screen. No, that wasn't the thing. Yeah, he grabbed a bunch of children and ran off camera. No, but he was in the movie up until Sharknado 3. And I think they had to take him out actually when this whole thing was happening. Yeah. I mean, it really ruined the continuity of the movie.
Oh, absolutely. It was
I was completely lost.
But I have no desire to watch these movies. I don't want to watch a movie that's just crappy for the sake of being crappy.
But this one, Sharkenstein, I'm going to say it was a masterclass in just terrible. It's truly I'm thinking Birdemic is another one that's really, really bad. Someone setting out okay, so sometimes the original B movie, was aiming to be an A movie. So like that's why it was a B movie though, because like they missed the mark. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like this though is like them trying to make a B movie, aiming for a B movie, and then hitting like F movie, Z movie, something terrible. It's like they're just way off base here. I think I'm going to make John watch it. I love it
when they try so hard to be good or to be not a B movie, and they just miss the mark so badly. I think that's hilarious when movies do that.
Well, I think this one was trying to be a B movie, but like that being the case, I think they skewed their vision of being a B movie by even just like, oh, wouldn't this be funny because this is like whatever. And you'll just have to watch the movie because I can't explain to you.
Was it like self-aware or just?
It was trying to like. I think that was the thing. It was like trying to be self-aware and it was trying to be campy, and they missed the mark of that. When you miss the mark of that, then you fall into dangerous territories. Like, oh man, this thing looks like crap. The acting is terrible. Like that chick there looks like she's probably done porn and would rather do it again than like ever do this movie. And like,
so, yeah, because it's one thing when they like break the fourth wall and are funny about it.
Here's the thing you see a lot in B movies or movies that are B or worse is like at the very least there's going to be some kind of like female character who's going to get probably at least topless at some point. Like that's kind of, I mean, that's almost a trope in itself.
Hulk Hogan's daughter.
And like, I could tell from minute one, like her word go in this movie that like, oh, this girl in here would be that movie that people are waiting for that to happen, but it's not going to happen because the budget for this movie is probably $6,000. And like, I mean, it's just like,
that's including craft services. And
if she was a porn star, she was like, man, Sharkenstein was probably the most embarrassing thing I think I've ever done in my entire career. So I don't know. That's what I was watching today, and I'll probably make you watch it at some point. We can probably talk at length about that movie. Maybe that's a future upcoming episode. What have you been watching, John?
Rocky, The Hammer.
Great.
No,
great featurette.
I've also been watching. Sorry,
I'm watching for that text message to come in all night. Okay, go ahead.
Let's see. I've been watching a couple TV shows. The Office. Not quite a movie. I've started a few that we're going to discuss in later podcasts as well. I'm basically just stalling, trying to remember what I was going to talk about.
Wow.
So I don't know if we're going to edit this
I was
out.
so ready to end the episode, and you were like, wait, hold on. I want to talk about this thing for sure.
Well, you can just cut that out, and then we can just do that the featurette in the next episode.
Would you stop? So you're being the Joel of this podcast right now.
Dang it. We're
like,
not going to cut this out,
right? No, we don't cut anything.
Hold on. I'll pull up Plex then. I'll tell you what I've been watching.
Okay, great.
I'm going to make this so painfully.
In the meantime, go to Let's Talk Movies, I guess, or ltmig.com and check out the Audible trial link where you can find a free trial of Audible for a 30-day free trial and a free audiobook from their library of more than 180,000 possible books you can get. I would recommend The Disaster Artist, which is a movie covering Greg Sestero's role in The Room.
That was a fantastic audiobook.
It really is. I think
it was written by Greg Sestero, narrated by Greg Sestero,
and impersonating Tommy Wiseau, and almost perfectly.
He actually impersonates Tommy Wiseau better than Tommy Wiseau impersonates Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah, exactly. That's because Greg Sestero is a pretty good actor, and Tommy Wiseau is not.
He is. Unfortunately, he hasn't really been picked up for a lot of roles.
I think he gets. I think based on his work history, he gets kind of looked over a little bit. I think you could cast that dude in any movie again and have anyone be like, oh, that's someone besides Greg or Mark from The Room.
All right, so back to what I've been watching. I started Flubber, got about 20 minutes into it, and took it out. We'll never watch the rest of it because it was terrible. And then I watched The Nice Guys. Have you seen The Nice Guys?
I haven't, but I saw it. It was on your Plex server, and it's interesting to me.
Yeah, it's okay. And then one I wanted to talk about briefly, either now or later, would be Sleepwalk with Me.
I think we might do an episode on that potentially. I think it's a really interesting movie.
Well, all I'll say is it's a really good movie. If you like Mike Birbiglia, which if you don't like him, it just means you never heard of him. So
or you haven't watched Sleepwalk with Me. I think honestly it's the most endearing piece of work you have.
And he's a fantastic comedian, kind of a little self-deprecating, very honest, but just very real and very funny.
But that movie comes across as kind of like an autobiographic version of his own story. I mean, like it's all very true, but it's all like very, like you're saying, honest. And there's parts of it that are just like truly kind of beautiful and sentiment and artistic.
And there are parts where he says, before we go to this part, remember, you're on my side.
I'm the protagonist. Yeah.
So it's fantastic. It's kind of low budget, but it tells a great story. Which low budget's not a bad thing.
I don't think it feels very low budget. I mean, it's definitely an indie movie. Like it's definitely like Sundance bait or whatever. But
absolutely. It's not high budget, but it's very good writing. Very, very. I would say a very affable protagonist.
I'd aff it.
I would definitely aff it. I would give it
4 out of 5 plus. I don't know. Whatever.
An aff plus.
So thanks for making us suffer through that this week, Sean. Did you have anything else, Dad?
No, I'm not going to add anything else to this episode. I think I've added enough.
I think so too. All right. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.